So Microsoft has bought Zenimax Media and Bethesda, and last night I did a long rambly live stream where we discussed what this meant for modding and for some of the games that we love. And in this video I just want to give you a very quick recap of some of the conclusions we came up with. And I'm going to start with how this will affect modding, but before I do, I would like to say that in the announcement video I made yesterday, I did crack a joke about this being Modpocalypse 2020. I sort of assumed most people knew my stance on this and would understand it was a joke, but of course I shouldn't forget that Poe's law is in effect and it is often difficult to know if someone is being serious or not. I was definitely not serious. This is no more the death of modding than any of the previous modpocalypses we've had, and also I was completely joking about the merchandise. There is no Modpocalypse 20 merch. I was really just poking a little light-hearted fun at all the people who constantly tell me the death of modding is here and have been telling me this for over a decade actually. You know, we've had so many modpocalypses I have lost count, and of course this news came out and there were already people on Twitter predicting that this was going to end modding somehow. And you know, I keep telling people that modding will be a lot harder to kill off than people think, and that I see no sign of it happening yet. I mean, I'm not saying it won't one day happen, that one day modding will come to an end in the Bethesda Game Studios games community. It is possible, but I've seen no signs of that happening, well, anytime in the near to mid future, to be honest. So let's just discuss that. For existing games, especially on PC, I do not see any changes to modding. It would be impossible for them to prevent us from modding the existing games like Skyrim, and even though they could perhaps make life a little difficult very briefly by releasing some sort of patch that we would have to undo, it would serve no purpose other than to annoy the snot out of the entire community. It would be massively counterproductive. And as I've said many times, even if they could flick a switch and disable modding for a game like Skyrim, all they would do is kill off Skyrim. That's what they would. I don't know why people think they would somehow make more money. People are like, yes, but if they disabled modding, everyone would buy more microtransactions. No, if they disabled modding, I would simply stop playing Skyrim completely, and that would be it. People would stop buying Skyrim. Skyrim would not be getting sold on, you know, new systems. It would not still be a relevant game. And of course, I'd possibly not be buying any of their games ever again, because modding is one of the major draws of their games. It's one of the big reasons I love their games, and it's certainly the reason I'm playing their games almost 10 years later. So I'm not seeing it happen, even if it could, and it can't. The same is going to be true for any new games that use a derivation of the existing engine. Their current games with the current engine are extremely moddable. Again, it's one of the major selling points, but it does mean that these games will continue to be moddable pretty much, you know, for the future. For consoles, it may be a little different, but mostly because of where the mods are going to be hosted. Will they stay on BethesdaNet? Will BethesdaNet still be a thing, or will it all move over to Microsoft? I don't think the mods will disappear. I'm pretty sure those mods will stay either where they are or get migrated across, because of course Microsoft does seem to be fairly friendly towards the idea of modding in various other games, but also in the Bethesda Game Studios games. Of the two consoles, Xbox One was the one that was way easier to mod. The modding scene for the Xbox One is way ahead of the PlayStation 4 scene, purely because of the restrictions Sony have put on what mod makers can do that Microsoft hasn't. So it's generally a good sign for the consoles, at least Xbox. You might make an argument that this could be bad news for PlayStation, but I would actually say that it was already pretty bad for PlayStation anyway, due to the restrictions that Sony implement, the restrictions they place on what we can upload. I can't imagine this is going to somehow magically be better now. Microsoft owns those companies, and indeed I could imagine this means that Bethesda will not even make an attempt to win Sony over. Perhaps they might have done that before, but now they're owned by Microsoft. Maybe they'll just say, fine, PlayStation doesn't want modding, they don't have it, and then this would become a major selling point for the Xbox as well. I could imagine that happening, although only for new games. I really cannot imagine they will turn off mods for the PlayStation, the current ones that are available. To be honest, even if they did, I'm not totally sure how many people are using mods on the PlayStation, but you know, those mods are just not as advanced as the ones available to the Xbox. So overall, I'm thinking from the modding scene perspective, not a lot will change. There might be some small differences here or there. There were some questions like, where will we get things like the creation kit or the construction set, whatever the developer tools are for creating mods, where will they come from? Because currently, for Fallout 4 and Skyrim Special Edition, it's from Bethesda.net. Will that now be from Microsoft, or will it be from Steam Tools? Not sure, but that's not something that's going to affect most players, even those that do a lot of modding. Now, on the subject of how this will affect the games that I am personally looking forward to from Bethesda, and in this case I mean Bethesda Game Studios, it's a bit of a, well, unknown, to be honest. Will Microsoft have a different approach to things like microtransactions than did Zenimax? Will they be quite so pushy with things like the Creation Club? Or will they say, no, just sell the game and make money that way, that's fine. You don't need to try and monetize the modding community at all. Because maybe Microsoft will appreciate the fact that the modding community does in fact provide a major selling point, a plus for the game anyway, and thus is already monetized, if somewhat indirectly. I'm really not the right person to ask about this, to be honest. I'm not an expert on the inner workings of Microsoft or ZeniMax. And so whilst, I've seen lots of reports and rumors and people's comments and, lots of armchair experts, I honestly couldn't tell you whether or not this acquisition will change the way Bethesda Game Studios attempts to monetize its games or does its PR. I really couldn't tell you. What I will say is, because of recent hiccups they've been having, I feel like any change is potentially a good change. It might be a positive thing. I don't get the feeling that it will necessarily be a negative thing. I don't think suddenly going over to Microsoft is going to accelerate the descent into microtransaction madness. Elder Scrolls 6 is going to be a mobile-only game where it's $10 to unlock each chest or something. I don't feel like Microsoft means that's going to happen. So it could be positive, yeah? What I will say, on a hopeful note, is this does, of course, open up some possibilities with regards the Fallout franchise and Obsidian. Because, of course, Obsidian is now owned by Microsoft. Bethesda Game Studios is owned by Microsoft. They're sister companies. I'm not a lawyer. I don't know what that means with regards to the IP. Could Microsoft give Fallout to Obsidian? Or could they sort of, do some negotiation and allow Obsidian to make a New Vegas 2 on the Fallout 4 engine, maybe? Because I would love to see that. I would personally love to see that. We were spitballing in the live stream, and I was saying if they could get Bethesda's open world, very moddable engine, because of course that's very important to me, and perhaps even some Bethesda staff to help with the world building, because I do believe Bethesda, well, they have a strength, and that strength is world building. They make great worlds, generally speaking. And then Obsidian, who are great with dialogue, great with storytelling, you know, do something like they did with New Vegas and New Vegas 2. I'm of the opinion that could be a massive win. Will it happen? I don't know. This is more of a, hey, it could happen now, maybe, right, sort of scenario. Whereas a year ago, if you'd asked me, I would have said, it's just not going to happen, right? Now, there's a maybe there, and I don't want to get too hopeful. I don't want to hang on to the maybes, but you know, let's just keep that on the back burner as a possible idea. I will add one thing here, though. I do not want them to take the Fallout IP from Bethesda and just give it to Obsidian and let Obsidian do their own thing with it. I know some people would love that, and I get it if you're such a person, but I personally loved Bethesda's reinterpretation of Fallout. I loved Fallout 3. I was a Fallout 1 and 2 fan, but I loved Fallout 3, and I adored Fallout New Vegas. I even liked Fallout 4, just there were certain parts of it I didn't like, which were the dialogue and the quest structure. But the actual world building, the exploration, the open world nature of that game, I still liked. And of course, I love the modability. So, you know, Bethesda make really good worlds. They do make worlds I want to explore. Obsidian, they do brilliant dialogue. They do excellent dialogue. It's why Fallout New Vegas is such a great game. The dialogue is brilliant. I love their take on things like factions. So I believe both of those development studios have different strengths. And whilst I appreciate some of the strengths from Obsidian, there are some things that Bethesda just do that are so good, so unique to them in some ways, that I don't want to see them lose that IP. I want to see another Fallout game from Bethesda, or at least on the Bethesda engine. And by that I mean heavily moddable and open world. If Obsidian do the writing and the quest structure for it, I have no problem with that. That would be perfect. That would be absolutely perfect. Beyond that, I don't think we really nailed anything down. We did talk about things like how this would affect Doom and Wolfenstein and Arcane games, because of course I'm a big fan of all of those. And I don't honestly think it's going to make too much of a difference, especially for Xbox and PC gamers. Could it make a difference with PlayStation gamers? Now, some of the games that are about to be released apparently have timed exclusives on PlayStation. And that is going to continue, or so I'm told. But I'm guessing that will never happen again from any of those studios. And if they do have timed exclusives, it will be Xbox. Does this mean every game that comes from those studios will be an Xbox timed exclusive? Will some of them even be completely exclusive, never to be released on the PlayStation? I don't know. I'm the wrong person to ask again. I know there's been announcements made where Microsoft has said, no, we won't do that. But, you know, when have we heard game developers or publishers say they will or won't do something and then they've gone back on their word? I don't know. Have Microsoft ever done it? I don't know. I don't really follow the gaming industry that closely, to be honest. I'm such a PC gamer. We generally don't. I mean, the only time we ever find out about exclusives are when they're PlayStation exclusives and somehow they're not ever going to come out on PC or come out a year later. And it is annoying, but it's such an infrequent thing that, you know, I can happily play more games than I have time for and never really worry too much about these timed exclusives. I can imagine for some of you, this issue is going to be far more important. And if you're a PlayStation user and you're thinking of upgrading to a PlayStation 5, this could be an issue. Although, as I said in the live stream, if you're somebody who's a big fan of Bethesda Game Studios games, if you're looking forward to Starfield and you're looking forward to The Elder Scrolls 6, and you're a console gamer, I have to say you really probably should be thinking of switching to Xbox purely because of the modding. I suspect no matter what had happened, even if Microsoft had not bought Zenimax, modding for the PlayStation on Starfield was probably going to be as problematic as it is for Fallout 4. I can't tell you that for sure. I don't have any insider information. I'm just basically assuming that, the issues would be there. We also discussed things like, would Bethesda Softworks even exist? I mean, they're a publishing company. They publish the games that Zenimax Media owns, but now Microsoft owns all the games that Zenimax Media owns, so why do they need Bethesda Softworks? And will there be a Bethesda net at all? Will there be a Bethesda launcher? Do they really need a Bethesda launcher? And we went backwards and forwards, and people gave conflicting reports, and such a person said this, and such a YouTuber said that, and such a game insider said that, and in the end I got more confused just from having the conversation. So I couldn't even tell you what's going to happen with that. Bethesda Softworks might just disappear. I personally don't even understand why it needs to exist. If Microsoft is its own publishing company, why don't they just publish the games that were under Zenimax? I would actually quite like that. You know why I would like that? I would like Bethesda Softworks to go away or get renamed, not because I don't like Bethesda Softworks, but because the amount of confusion there is every single bloody time Bethesda Softworks release a game, and like 90% of the gaming population assumes Todd Howard was in charge of it because he's the CEO of Bethesda Game Studios, even though those two are not actually the same bloody thing. It was damned confusing, and if Bethesda Softworks could just sort of go away, as it were, or just become Microsoft Softworks or something, that would be good. That would be good. Because then every single time, like, a trailer for Doom came out or Wolfenstein came out, we wouldn't get, like, tens and hundreds of comments going, "Where's Elder Scrolls 6? Stop working on Doom. No one cares about Doom. All we want is Elder Scrolls 6. The Elder Scrolls Online is not made by Bethesda Game Studios! Because it's a little annoying, that. Oh, and we didn't talk about Fallout 76 because I didn't want to. And apparently nobody else did. So, yeah, no idea. Don't honestly care at this point. Again, I'm not trying to down on anyone who loves that game. If you're loving that game, more power to you. I just don't have any opinion or thoughts on what might happen to it, other than maybe it will go off the Bethesda launcher and then suddenly be somewhere else beyond that. I don't know. I don't know, and I'm going to leave that to people who are far more passionate and knowledgeable about that game. And indeed, I'm going to leave you there. That is pretty much all we discussed that was actually remotely related to gaming. The rest of the discussion was varied and often silly. So there you go. Pretty much par for the course on many of my live streams. So anyway, there you go. Thank you very much. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you guys next time. They even do it on videos about Rage or Doom or Wolfenstein. What the hell does Rage and Doom have to do with Bethesda Game Studios? Apart from, appropriately describing their fan base online at times.